Taoism is a philosophical, ethical or religious tradition of Chinese origin that emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao. The term Tao means way, path, or principle, and can also be found in Chinese philosophies and religions other than Taoism. In Taoism, however, Tao denotes something that is both the source of, and the force behind, everything that exists. Taoism is practiced as a religion in various Asian communities. Its theology is not theist, and has more affinities with pantheistic traditions given its philosophical emphasis on the formlessness of the Tao. Taoism drew its cosmological notions from the tenets of the school of yin-yang, and is heavily influenced and informed by the acknowledged oldest text of ancient Chinese classics, the I Ching, which prescribes a system of philosophical thought on the ethics of human behaviors based on articulating cycles of change in the natural and social worlds by means of hexagrams, and includes instructions for divination practice still adhered to by modern-day religious Taoists. Daoism, as Taoism is sometimes referred, diverged sharply from Confucian thoughts by scorning rigid rituals and social classes. The Tao Te Ching, a compact and ambiguous book containing teachings attributed to Laozi, is widely considered the keystone work of this philosophy, together with the writings of Zhuangzi, which interprets and adds to the teaching of Laozi. These classic texts provide the philosophical foundation of Taoism, deriving from the 8 trigrams of Fuxi in the 2700s BCE in China, the various combinations of which creates the 64 hexagrams as documented in the I Ching. Taoist propriety and ethics may vary depending on the particular school, but in general they tend to emphasize wu-wei, naturalness, simplicity, spontaneity, and the 3 treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen. Taoism has had a profound influence on Chinese culture in the course of the centuries, and clerics of institutionalized Taoism usually take care to note distinction between their ritual tradition and the customs and practices found in Chinese folk religion, as these distinctions sometimes appear blurred. Chinese alchemy, Chinese astrology, Chan Buddhism, several martial arts, traditional Chinese medicine, feng shui, and many styles of qigong have been intertwined with Taoism throughout history. Beyond China, Taoism also had influence on surrounding societies in Asia. After Laozi and Zhuangzi, the literature of Taoism grew steadily and was compiled in form of a canon, the Daoism, which was published at the behest of the emperor. Throughout Chinese history, Taoism was several times nominated as a state religion. After the 17th century, however, it fell from favor. Today, Taoism is one of 5 religions officially recognized in China, and although it does not travel readily from its Asian roots, claims adherents in a number of societies. Taoism also has sizable communities in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan and in Southeast Asia. Definition: speaking and pronunciation. English speakers continue to debate the preferred romanization of the words Daoism and Taoism. The root Chinese word Wei, path, is romanized Tao in the older Wei-Giles system and Dao in the modern Pinyin system. In linguistic terminology, English Taoism, Daoism, is formed from the Chinese loan word Tao, Dao, Wei, root, principle, and the native suffix ism. The debate over Taoism versus Daoism involves phonology, phonemes, loan words, and politics, not to mention whether Taoism should be pronounced Ta-zem or Da-zem. Daoism is pronounced Da-zem, but English speakers disagree whether Taoism should be Da-zem or Ta-zem. In theory, both Wei-Giles Tao and Pinyin Dao are articulated identically, as are Taoism and Daoism. An investment book titled The Dow Jones Averages illustrates this Da pronunciation's widespread familiarity. In speech, Tao and Taoism are often pronounced ta and ta-zem, reading the Chinese unaspirated Lenash t as the English voiceless stop consonant t. Lexicography shows American and British English differences in pronouncing Taoism. A study of major English dictionaries published in Great Britain and the United States found the most common Taoism glosses were ta-zem in British sources and da-zem, ta-zem in American ones. Categorization. The word Taoism is used to translate different Chinese terms which refer to different aspects of the same tradition and semantic field. Taoist religion, or the liturgical aspect, a family of organized religious movements, sharing concept or terminology from Taoist philosophy. The first of these is recognized as the Celestial Masters School. Taoist philosophy, or Taoology, or the mystical aspect, the philosophical doctrines based on the texts of the I Ching, the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi. These texts were linked together as Taoist philosophy during the early Han Dynasty, but notably not before. It is unlikely that Zhuangzi was familiar with the text of the Dao De Jing, and Zhuangzi would not have identified himself as a Taoist, as this classification did not arise until well after his death. However, the discussed distinction is rejected by the majority of Western and Japanese scholars. It is contested by hermeneutic difficulties in the categorization of the different Taoist schools, sects and movements. Taoism does not fall under an umbrella or a definition of a single organized religion like the Abrahamic traditions, nor can it be studied as a mere variant of Chinese folk religion, as although the two share some similar concepts, much of Chinese folk religion is separate from the tenets and core teachings of Taoism. Sinologists Isabel Robinett and Livia Cohn agree that Taoism has never been a unified religion, and has constantly consisted of a combination of teachings based on a variety of original revelations. Cheng Yingcheng, a Chinese philosopher, views Taoism as a religion that has been embedded into Chinese history and tradition. Whether Confucianism, Daoism, or later Chinese Buddhism, they all fall into this pattern of thinking and organizing, and in this sense remain religious. Even though individually and intellectually they also assume forms of philosophy and practical wisdom. Cheng Yingcheng also noted that the Taoist view of heaven flows mainly from observation and meditation, though the teaching of the way can also include the way of heaven independently of human nature. In Chinese history, the three religions of Buddhism, Daoism and Confucianism stand on their own independent views, and yet are involved in a process of attempting to find harmonization and convergence among themselves, so that we can speak of a unity of three religious teaching. The term Taoist, traditionally, the Chinese language does not have terms defining lay people adhering to the doctrines or the practices of Taoism, who fall instead within the field of folk religion. Taoist, in the sinological literature of the 19th and early 20th centuries, was used as a translation of Daoshi, or Taoist priest, that is applied to the ordained clergymen of a Taoist institution who represent Taoist culture on a professional basis, are experts of Taoist liturgy, and therefore can employ this knowledge and ritual skills for the benefit of a community. This role of Taoist priests reflects the definition of Taoism as a liturgical framework for the development of local cults. In other words, a scheme or structure for the Chinese folk religion, proposed first by Christopher Schipper in the Taoist Body. Daoshi traditions are comparable in their role to the non-Taoist fascia traditions. The term Dao Jiao, with the meaning of Taoist, as lay member or believer of Taoism, is a modern invention that goes back to the introduction of the Western category of organized religion in China in the 20th century, and the creation of the Chinese Taoist Association. But it has little application in the fabric of Chinese society, in which Taoism continues to be an order of the larger structure of Chinese religion. Origins and development. Laozi is traditionally regarded as the founder of Taoism and is closely associated in this context with original or primordial Taoism. Whether he actually existed is disputed. However, the work attributed to him, the Tao Te Ching, is dated to the late 4th century BCE. Taoism draws its cosmological foundations from the school of naturalists, which developed during the Warring States period. Robinett identifies 4 components in the emergence of Taoism: philosophical Taoism, i.e., the Tao Te Ching and Zhuangzi; techniques for achieving ecstasy; practices for achieving longevity or immortality; exorcism. Some elements of Taoism may be traced to prehistoric folk religions in China that later coalesced into a Taoist tradition. In particular, many Taoist practices drew from the Warring States era phenomena of the Wu and the Fangxi, even though later Taoists insisted that this was not the case. Both terms were used to designate individuals dedicated to magic, medicine, divination. The Fangxi were philosophically close to the school of naturalists, and relied much on astrological and calendrical speculations in their divinatory activities. The first organized form of Taoism, the Tianxi school, developed from the 5 pecks of rice movement at the end of the 2nd century CE. The latter had been founded by Zhang Daoling, who claimed that Laozi appeared to him in the year 142. The Tianxi school was officially recognized by ruler Cao Cao in 215, legitimizing Cao Cao's rise to power in return. Laozi received imperial recognition as of divinity in the mid-2nd century BCE. Taoism, in form of the Shangqing school, gained official status in China again during the Tang dynasty, whose emperors claimed Laozi as their relative. The Shangqing movement, however, had developed much earlier, in the 4th century, on the basis of a series of revelations by gods and spirits to a certain Yangshi in the years between 364 to 370. Between 397 and 402 GEKRF compiled a series of scriptures which later served as the foundation of the Lingbao school, which unfolded its greatest influence during the Song dynasty. Several Song emperors, most notably Huizong, were active in promoting Taoism, collecting Taoist texts and publishing editions of the Daoism. In the 12th century, the Quanzhen school was founded in Shandong. It flourished during the 13th and 14th century and during the Yuan dynasty became the largest and most important Taoist school in northern China. The school's most revered master, Huayu Chuji, met with Genghis Khan in 1222 and was successful in influencing the Khan towards exerting more restraint during his brutal conquests. By the Khan's decree, the school also was exempt from taxation. Aspects of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism were consciously synthesized in the Neo-Confucian school, which eventually became imperial orthodoxy for state bureaucratic purposes under the Ming. The Qing dynasty, however, much favored Confucian classics over Taoist works. During the 18th century, the imperial library was constituted, but excluded virtually all Taoist books. By the beginning of the 20th century, Taoism had fallen much from favor. Today, Taoism is one of 5 religions recognized by the People's Republic of China. The government regulates its activities through the Chinese Taoist Association. Taoism is freely practiced in Taiwan, where it claims millions of adherents.